How you doing? Welcome to the live in the heart of America. I've been calling this Welcome to Civil War 3, and today it just doesn't seem appropriate to use that title that much anymore in the wake of the inauguration happening, and it was such a positive day, and a lot of people, including myself, are happy. It seems like the adults are in charge now. That we've had the daycare presidency, and now we have somebody who at least knows how to speak. Some people are like, well, you seem to be happy. There's going to be business as usual. Go back to the way things always were in Washington. I'm like, yeah, I am happy about that, because now we've been shown what it's like to have somebody in the office whose only goal, it seemed, was to draw attention to himself every single day. And we begin to realize that what leadership is essentially running things in such a way that you don't have to pay attention to what's going on every day. That you can go really sorry for people who have bought into conspiracy theories and allowing themselves to be used by very powerful forces and movements in the world where they can't move on with their lives, and they are willing to destroy their own lives and livelihoods just over spending too much time on the internet, basically. But then it's also occurred to me that quite a few people who did this terrible thing to people who didn't really have that much of a life to speak of. I mean, sure, there are people there that were protesting, and we're like, yeah, I'm here, I'm taking time out of a busy life, raising a family, running a business, or being a part of something to express my grievances. And then you had people who were just completely off the rails, 110% dedicated. This is their life. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think a great many of the people that I saw there with expensive camera equipment and heavy-duty vlogging gear are people who have a YouTube channel that they're trying to feed content to, and let's stage a coup and make things all dramatic so that I could get 1 million views today. Make my living off of YouTube. And then, irony of all ironies, finding out that they're essentially breaking the YouTube terms of service, finding their channel and this, at least that those particular videos being demonetized, hopefully, and finding out that it doesn't matter how many views you get if you appeal to the wingnuts of the world, which here are plenty of, and you incite violence, which is not necessary. I mean, I've always said that I've been at this a long time, actually. I've always said that I believe that the average person should have access to media in some way, shape, or form. equipment getting less expensive and much better, and things like YouTube, where we do have access to our own channels, things are not as tough as they once were to get that kind of access. A long time ago, and if you study media laws and stuff, a long time ago, about the only access you had was an op-ed in a newspaper, and supposedly if you filed a form or an application, you could get on any TV station and they would give you time to air your opinion. Well, nobody ever required TV stations to do that, and of course greed took over, and a TV minute is very expensive, and so they would never do that. Then cable TV came along, and the U.S. government said, here we go, we'll require cable stations, since they have what is it called, common carrier status, which means that your local cable station has a monopoly over your area. You can't go, I would rather choose competition to this cable station. There's one across the street I'd rather get. Their prices are better. No, it's hard for the infrastructure to go into everybody's house, and the cable stations had to build that. But in order to do that, they had to carry a franchise agreement with the local government, and they had to provide a channel, usually by contract with the government, a PEG channel. PEG stands for Public Educational Government, Public Access Channel. And a part of that was to give public access to the public, and yeah, you could go in and you could produce your own TV show. I've only seen one cable network. No, I did a show in Warrensburg, and it was a local band show. And then I went to work at a cable station in Lawrence, Kansas, my first job out of college, which I actually really enjoyed. I loved it. Worked for they produced their own local news, the Lawrence Report, and I remember they had a show, and they had people standing by, and you came in and you did your idea for a show, and so there was at least an hour, I can't remember how much it was, an hour dedicated to people's access to express themselves, their opinions, or show off art, or whatever it was. You could produce your own program. And at the time, they were talking about the technology improving to where they were like, well, you don't really have to go into the station to do that. There's the two-way box where you can produce your own thing at home and call up the cable station and say, I produced my program, and play it back for them, and they would record it via a box that was sending it to the station from your home. But that never really came to much. I think maybe I had heard that there was a cable network in Minneapolis that was doing something like that. And if you look on YouTube now, you can see some of these shows, some of these old produced shows, and quite often you would get somebody that would come on there to like a conspiracy program, and how they are very anti-government, and is public access. You're free to express your opinion. Go ahead. Here in Kansas City, we had a cable station that really did not want to allow public access, so they whipped up a frenzy about the Ku Klux Klan is coming in and doing a program here on our station, and we don't want that. And they got the city council to say, oh, no, get rid of that public access. We don't want it. We don't want to hear from the Ku Klux Klan. And they're essentially using the right-wing extremists of small fringe to make it to where the public lost their access. In other words, it was a form of censorship that was rubber stamped by the local government, who should have known better. And even me and my cable station, I did my program after learning that somebody else in the college had done a program. I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. That's what I really want to do. And I was in the university at the time. Actually, I was in the Air Force. And so I did my program, and it went well. And, you know, it was just, I used to go out all the time and shoot bands, local bands, and I was just playing back the recording of the local bands. I would put together a little compilation. I still have a bunch of those. It was called Scene 6. My show was in the university at the local, where I got my start, was actually public access in the university. TV station, cable station, that was for the students to use. It was a program. You would go in there and you could produce your own program. And my program was called Scene 6 there. And then I went into the town and produced the same program for the cable network. And it went good. But the person who helped me along, his name was Ray, I think. Ray Pouts, I believe. I can't remember. He was really happy to do it. He was dedicated to the idea, but he was retiring, and his replacement did not want it, did not like it, and I think he was a member of one of the churches in town. And he, you know, while I was doing the program, Ray said, you know, I've been getting this phone call from like the same people complaining about your show. And I'm like, okay. And are they complaining? Is it they don't like the content? Am I doing something wrong? He said, you're not doing anything wrong. These people are nuts. They're a fringe. They don't want to see anything on the cable network, especially, you know, they just think that everything is sinful. And, you know, I remember that conversation. Well, he left, and his replacement was the exact opposite of him. And thus came the censorship again, you know. And it's about that time that, you know, another form of public access, which still exists in this city, is community radio, KKFI 90.1. And there used to be these late night shows on that I would listen to. And, I can't even remember the name. They eventually got kicked off because they were kind of spouting hate speech against, it was, how would I say? It was a African American based program. And I used to listen to it avidly. I listen to them talk, and you get a lot of hate, bad about things. And sometimes you'd hear them get into arguments with people who hated black people clearly and wanted to express that on the radio show. And they got kicked off one night. They got a little too carried away, and they described all white people as being cavemen. I remember that was the incident. And I thought that was a shame because I really actually liked them. I think they had a valid voice. But one night they came on and they played back a tape that, it was a VHS tape, but they played it all the way through. And it was this woman, this was, 1994, I believe. It was a year after Waco, or 95. And this woman had produced these videotapes talking about the government cover-up at Ruby Ridge and Waco, and I remember she had produced one before. It was called Waco the Big Lie, and then she produced another one called Waco the Big Lie Continues. And a lot of people were very disturbed and upset at the government actions in Waco. And so much so, and so much into the conspiracy theories, that a couple of people from Kansas decided to act on it and try and blow up the building where the raid on Waco was planned, which was the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. And of course, in so doing, they killed a lot of people that had nothing to do with any of that. I think that the reason why that happened was because the ATF office that had actually planned the raid was in the Murrah Federal Building. And, you know, that was really bad. It was really a shame. A lot of people who were into that and believed a lot of the conspiracy theories back then did not, you know, that was not a part of what we were or what we were about. We were like, no, you know, raise awareness. Don't go off the deep end and decide. And of course, it was somebody who had kind of dedicated their life to that, and, you know, they didn't have much of a life, so that they couldn't move on with their own life. To this day, I still believe that things like Ruby Ridge and Waco were examples of government excess. And still not go completely off the deep end in the conspiracy theory world, to where I'm buying into a theory that Hillary Clinton is running a pedophile ring out of a basement of a pizza parlor in Washington, D.C. One guy went to that pizza parlor and shot at the floor, only to find out that the pizza parlor doesn't even have a basement. Isn't that hilarious? But it's not hilarious. It's not funny at all. What he found was a pizza parlor that was like a neighborhood parlor. Families would eat there. Who knows why people picked on this place? And he goes in with a weapon of a mass casualty weapon and shoots at the floor, because he's convinced there's a basement in there with a tunnel that's running, that's kidnapping children and selling them into slavery and doing Lord knows what, and that there's some sort of Antichrist cult in there. I remember, when was it, 90, 91, the first time I had ever heard that the United Nations was planning to invade the USA with help of an insider, Fifth Element, the Quislings of understand what those phrases mean, then you need to look into your history. You know, Fifth Column, the Quisling, and you know, it was interesting coffee house talk back at the time, but you don't allow yourself to get so caught up in that you don't move on and live your life. I mean, the thing about a conspiracy theory is that you spend more and more time trying to justify your belief in that theory, and it's just not logical. And quite often there are coincidences that happen in the world. You know, I asked somebody once, why would the ATF botch an operation in Waco? Well, the conversation kind of went like, the ATF raid in Waco was more or less a botched operation, and the cover-up was to cover up the fact that they were planning this raid in order to, how did he put it? In order to promote people in the office who didn't have an opportunity to do real street police work. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that sounds... Well, anyway. Yesterday was a positive day, and I'm very happy. It was like a huge weight has been taken off of my shoulders, and everybody I know feels the same way. So, you sign off for tonight, and I'll be back in the morning.